this latest ruling that just came down the pike, and this was yesterday, where you don't even have to file a waiver for your second transfer. So you can transfer once, of course. You don't have to sit out. You don't have to file a waiver. Hell, I don't even know if you have to sign anything. But your second time, you had to fill out a waiver. Now you don't have to fill out a waiver. Okay, I'm all for players' rights. I said they should be paid a long time ago. But if a guy can go, theoretically, where these programs stand now, let me throw this at you. He starts at Vanderbilt. I'm too good for Vanderbilt. I'm going to Kentucky. I'm too good for Kentucky. Next season, I'm going to Tennessee. Well, maybe I'm too good for Tennessee, and Alabama looks loaded. They could win a championship. I'm going to Alabama. I got a real problem with that. 4 schools in 4 years could be a real possibility because of the antitrust laws that are being struck down by Congress. And at some point, there has to be some common sense, because to be able to play for 3 and 4 SEC schools, what are we rooting for? Just jerseys? In my opinion, and Peyton Manning agrees.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
Caleb, what do you think?
So to give people a background on this, this was a U.S. district judge struck down the NCAA rule that right up until yesterday, you could transfer one time without a waiver. The second time you transferred, you had to get an eligibility waiver from the NCAA to play immediately, and the NCAA tightened those waiver requirements in January. A district judge put a restraining order on that ruling. A restraining order sounds weird. It sounds like the NCAA is like harassing you. But the district judge put a restraining order on that ruling, meaning it's struck down for the next 2 weeks, and then a hearing is set for hearing for the restraining order is set for December the 27th. The NCAA has not yet made clear whether or not they will fight this ruling, meaning if they don't fight it, then on December the 27th, they don't show up for the hearing. That's it. And for the rest of time, you can transfer. It was done in West Virginia. However, West Virginia wasn't the only state that fought for this to end this restraining order, by the way. Colorado, Illinois, New York, North Carolina, Ohio, and yes, Dave, Tennessee, all were for this. Now, I think all these states were for different logistical reasons. Like, I think Illinois is a very liberal state. They support college athletes' rights. So just on principle, they're behind the idea of doing it. I mean, Northwestern Union is trying to unionize. I think Tennessee's behind, and the same with New York. I think Tennessee's behind it because Tennessee wants to be able to get more transfers, quite honestly, and the same with Colorado. So where all this goes, I'm not sure. But Dave, I will say this in defense of the athletes: coaches can go wherever they want. I mean, Lane Kiffin was allowed to go to Tennessee for a year and then tell his signees to not go to class, so they can follow him to USC. And I guess that was Ed Orgeron that did that. So if the coaches can do that when they're making $10 to $15 million, it's hard to say the players can't at that point.
Well, I mean, it's hard, but at some point you have to have some common sense. And I'm a players' rights guy, and I'm all for it. But I think the next step is the players need to unionize, and there needs to be a collective bargaining agreement, because this is silly. If you start going from team to team like you already are to a greater extent, that's very troublesome to me. I mean, at what point is it the old Seinfeld episode where we're really just rooting for the laundry? I mean, it is kind of like that. And that's the thing that I think differentiates itself, not to the same extent that it did a couple of years ago, differentiates itself from college football from the NFL. Is the NFL, yes, Deion Sanders can bounce from team to team, and I love him one year and I hate him the next year. But you don't want to see that out of a Nico, out of a Carson Beck, out of one of those guys. Your thoughts on that, brought to you by Don Self. Customer service still matters. Your neighborhood State Farm agent for the greater Chattanooga area. Everybody's price shopping now, but you don't want a surprise at the time of your claim. Over 40 years, that's Don Self and his team take customer service seriously. 423-396-2126, 423-396-2126, or go to donself.net. So other than a union, how can we stop this? And I'm a players' rights guy, Caleb, so please don't paint me as I'm the man, so to speak.
No, but Dave, I will say, I think you are. I'm not saying you're not a players' rights guy. As a matter of fact, this actually, I think the eligibility waiver works in the player's favor because I think it helps players to make them think twice before transferring because they can make a really reckless decision and not realize they're harming themselves long term. However, I will say this, something you brought up. You don't want guys coming in and out. Okay, let's go to basketball for a minute. Kentucky's a basketball school. Do you think they've cared for the last 15 years that they've had players for 1 year and that's it? Do you think they have cared whatsoever?
Well, I think their fans do. Don't you think they're
care at all?
No, because they've just won one championship. If they had 3 championships,
that's what they care about. They care about that they've only won one championship. They don't care that they only root for players a year and that players are using them as a pit stop for the NBA. They care that it's not turning into championships.
Okay, but the style of play, just the level of play, is it not going to go down? I mean, let's take worst case scenario. You're able to transfer 3 times without a waiver, without any hurdles whatsoever. And the transfer portal goes from 1,000 guys were in it, or 1,100 or whatever it was, to 3,000. Then the level of play in football is going to go down. And for those of us that love the game, no matter who's playing it, it's not the same product because you can't gel together over time because you may have been at Arizona State the year before, and the year before that, Cal, Miami the year before that. There just has to be some sort of common sense.
I actually think that's it. I think to a degree you might be right, but I think in another way it'll help the level of play at other schools because there will be other schools that have a culture of 4-year guys. You saw this in college basketball, by the way. Amidst all the one and dones, there are a few schools that have cultures of 4-year guys. Villanova, and they go and win 2 national titles, not because their team was more talented than North Carolina, but because they gelled together so well.
No. Basketball is different. I'm talking about football.
Yeah, but football you might have that. Okay, one of the just an example, like. One of the most, okay, let's put this out in football real quick. The position that requires gelling the most, bar none, no questions asked, is offensive line. As a unit, them gelling matters more than any other position. Maybe the secondary, but offensive line more than the secondary, right?
Secondary, a closer second, I think, than you, but that's fine, yes.
Okay. Wisconsin and Iowa and Nebraska have for years tried to build a tradition of walk-on offensive linemen that are coached up well and gel and work well together. All of a sudden, with this ruling, with players going all around, those 3 schools could get a unique advantage just with the level of gelling on the offensive line that make them maybe sneak a win over Ohio State 1 year in a Big Ten title game, maybe sneak into the college football playoff that they never would have done otherwise. And I think there's something entertaining about that, isn't it, Dave?
I mean, I don't know. I want to ask the message board, is it entertaining to you? Because like I said earlier, our numbers are up in December when I've worked in radio. Usually ratings dip a little bit in December. Our numbers are actually up. And I'm sure it's because of the transfer portal talk and the NIL talk. So maybe it's good for us, but is it good for but the Evans of the world and our guys that are on there and Travis, is it good for you as a fan? The Smoky Mountain Red, is it good for you? All the guys on our message board, I don't think it's good for you. I think that you want to be invested with a young man. I think you want to see a high level of college football that's just a step short of the NFL, not way short of the NFL. I just don't. I think the level of play will decrease. And I think the loyalty to individual teams will decrease some too. I mean, if you're a Georgia fan and Carson Beck says, I don't like the fact that Georgia got the short end of the stick here because we're one of the 4 best teams and I'm going to Alabama. I mean, how are Georgia fans going to feel about that? I mean, I know I'm just pulling an example out of nowhere, so don't nitpick me, but it just, at some point, it's just there's no loyalty there at all, Caleb.
Dave, let's make it more fun. What if this happens? This is going to be really funny. What if a judge strikes down the NCAA eligibility rulings of when you transfer? So, for instance, many schools have a winter semester that you can early enroll in, like that starts before the college football playoff. I got a question for you. This is a real crazy question. How close are we to an All-American transferring to a school that's in the college football playoff and then playing in that playoff for that school?
I don't think you're far from that. I don't think you're far from that. Now, I think legally that you can't stop it. So what if Carson Beck right now said, okay, who's the worst quarterback of the 4 remaining teams? I guess Texas is dude, right?
I think Michigan's JJ McCarthy. I don't think he's good.
Okay. Okay. So again, I'm pretending. Let's say Carson Beck's a junior and this is his last year to win a championship. And he goes, I think I'm just going to I'm going to transfer to Michigan for the college football playoff. See you guys. That is not outside the realm of possibility.
That would make for the most, but for us, that would make them for the wildest December every year because you've got like 12 teams in the playoff. And no, I'm with you. It's not. I don't know how you regulate it because of the antitrust rules, but
who's the quarterback in his last year? Who's a quarterback right now is
Joe Milton?
No, a really
Bo
good
Nix.
one.
Bo Nix is a good one. Bo Nix.
Okay,
Bo Nix.
Let's say Bo Nix. If Michigan called and said, Bo, we're going to give you $10 million to play in the college football playoff, is there anything legally that the United States of America or the NCAA could possibly do to stop it?
That's a really good question. I don't know if there is. That's a really, really, really good question. I don't know.
Here's $10 million, Bo. Here's $10 million. And it would be worth it.
Yeah, they'd get a championship out of it for a couple months. I agree. It's, but it's all okay. How often would this happen? It would happen a good bit. I will say it's the more I'm thinking about it, it would happen. Another one, actually a smaller level, because here's one that's a smaller school that would want to try his chance. Kadon Salter at Liberty. He just went undefeated at Liberty.
And what about running backs? They could make the transition easier.
Yeah, they don't have to learn a playbook. It's take the ball and run with it.
Yeah, I mean, figure out some pass pro. There you go.